Well, George Russell came off of what we said was a lucky weekend. He was lucky. I mean, Antonelli didn't get a good qualifying time in because of the yellow flag. And during the race, if Antonelli had qualified in P2 or even P3, he would have caught up and beaten him. Verstappen caught up and beat him too. But I think Silverstone is still another chance for Russell to challenge Antonelli for qualifying. I think Russell and Antonelli will challenge each other for qualifying. This is one of the tracks where, if there are tracks that Russell will have an advantage, like last week's track. Where was last week again?
Austria.
The high-speed power tracks that don't have a lot of complex, slow corners favor Russell, even though they're beginning to favor him less than less. This one also is a very fast track in which he can avoid those low-speed corners that he hates, and can take advantage of the fact that he's good on high-speed corners and good at deploying power. But the caveat is that Antonelli's catching up with him on high-speed corners, and also just being able to out-qualify him on any track or challenge him on any track. We know that he can't challenge Antonelli over one lap on tracks that have a lot of low-speed corners, somewhere like Monaco. But what we now see is where he would have an advantage over Antonelli on the high-speed tracks and front-limited tracks is now 50-50. The big question is who would win the race, because Antonelli, I don't care what anybody says, low speed, high speed, rear limited, front limited, doesn't matter. Antonelli has better pace than George Russell because the Mercedes car has a slightly loose rear end because it's front limit. It's a fronty car made for power tracks and made for deployment, and George Russell just is not able to drive in a way that he doesn't wear his tires out. So Antonelli has a massive advantage in tire deg. So I'm going to predict, once again, Antonelli will probably beat Russell and win this race unless something goes wrong. But Russell will out-qualify him. And let's keep our fingers crossed for Russell. Russell will have a good chance of also beating him in the race, but I'm just going to tip Antonelli. But let's look at the track and see why this track favors Mercedes, then McLaren, but it's not going to be good for Ferrari and Red Bull. Let's start with Sector 1, which is the red sector. This sector does have some low-speed parts of it. 4 specifically is sort of low-speed. Corner 4 here. And getting out of there, so that's the only real low-speed sector. So that little area where you have from 4 to 5, and also 3. 3 looks like it's a chicane. So 3, 4, and 5 are low. But if you look at the rest of Sector 1, 1 to 2 to 3 is a high-speed cornering section, and you start off with a straight. This is what Red Bull likes. They like, not Red Bull, this is what Mercedes like. When they're doing their flying lap, once they get to Sector 3, before they get to Sector 1 of their flying lap, they're going to deploy power and everything. Now, the fact that there are corners there is good news for Ferrari because it will cut some of Mercedes' advantage, and also for McLaren, which does well on high-speed corners and pretty well on low-speed corners. So McLaren and Ferrari will take some time off of Mercedes in Sector 1 because of that. But I think still overall, Mercedes has a slight advantage in Sector 1. What do you think about that, Afolabi? Just talking about this one sector.
Yeah, Sector 1, I think you're absolutely right. Mercedes have an advantage here. And you can see that overall, this is a very,
Try to get
very.
closer to your speaker because you're sounding a little bit muffled. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Sector 1 a little bit tight in terms of the way it is. You're going to require a lot of high-speed cornering performance here, which is where I think Mercedes has a critical advantage. Front tire management, you mentioned Antonelli having the better tire management here, and I think this will come in. This will be very critical.
Afolabi, you have to make sure you speak clearly because you're muffled. Make sure you stay close to the speaker and talk louder.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that here the high-speed cornering performance will be critical. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Then secondly, front tire management, especially in 3, 4, and 5 around Sector 1. The front tire management will be crucial as well. You mentioned Antonelli's advantage here, and I think this is also very important. Then all of a sudden you get to 5, and then there's a long straight that goes to 6. Aerodynamic pace and performance are going to be crucial here as well.
So I think overall, Mercedes.
All these areas I mentioned are ace areas for Mercedes.
Yeah, but also McLaren. McLaren is better with the high speed part and the slow part, and Ferrari will be better in the slow. We have to remember, Mercedes is not a car for low speed cornering, so not all of it. The high speed corners, McLaren will do well. I mean, 1 to 2 to 3, and Mercedes will do pretty well. but that little area 3. So this area is moderately low speed. So Ferrari will have some advantage here, but Mercedes overall will tend to have the advantage. Let's go to sector 2. Sector 2 starts off with some low speed corners, 6 and 7. Once again, this is what Ferrari likes. But once you get past that, everything else is pretty much straight all the way from 8 and 9. Even though there's a corner at 9, it's a high speed corner 9, 10, and then you get to those S's. So this sector is going to be strongly for Mercedes, but even so more so for Ferrari, because when you get to 10, 11, 12, not Ferrari, when you get to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the S's, McLaren is good at that and will harness some energy. But once again, I'll still give the advantage to Mercedes because that straight air, this is relatively high speed, relatively flat out part of the track. Uh, Once again, Ferrari, there's not much for them, a little bit maybe from 6 to 7. Then when you look at sector 3 is definitely going to be for Mercedes. And it all starts before sector 3. By the time they get off of corner 14 straight,
Yeah.
then you
All
have
the way
that
to
slight,
15.
then you have a medium corner 15, then a little chicane at 16. But in general, this is going to, so when you look at the logic of this whole track, it favors Mercedes, not hugely, but it favors Mercedes. And then when you also look at it, because McLaren has somewhat near the power of Mercedes with the engine, even though they don't, and McLaren tends to do well on high-speed corners and flowing corners, it's going to favor McLaren over Ferrari. We know that Ferrari likes to have tight corners and complexes of tight corners and doesn't do well on straights. And also, Ferrari has more grip in its rear tires. No, maybe not. They may have more grip in their front, but it's not going to matter because cornering is not going to be an advantage for Ferrari here. Red Bull, the problem with Red Bull is that this track has a lot of bumps and curbs, and also because it's front limited, Red Bull has now become a rear limited car with its anti-dive. So this track may not have enough of the type of low speed corners that Red Bull likes. We know that the Red Bull was really doing well at the last track, Austria, on corners 1, 2, and 3, which are low speed. So anywhere where there's low speed corners, Red Bull will do well. So there are some here, but I just think in general, this type of track, being front limited, is not going to favor Red Bull. But once again, you never know if that Red Bull car, that shit is crazy. It's got some pace and it's got Max behind the wheel. So just because we're saying this track isn't made for Red Bull, don't hold us to that. So I guess overall, what we're looking at is the Mercedes pair should come first and second in qualifying, and maybe most likely the race. And I'm going to have McLaren coming third and fourth. But for some reason, McLaren, even on tracks where they do well, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But I'll say Norris and Piastri will fight to get on the podium with Russell and Antonelli. And once again, this track you would think favors Russell over one lap. But the question is, will it really? And even if it does, and even if Antonelli comes in P2, won't Antonelli just pass him during the race because of tire management? So I'm going to go and say Antonelli will win with Russell having an outside chance of winning this race. Russell will win the qualifying. What are your thoughts? What are your predictions, Afolabi?
Yeah, because of his one lap pace, I think Russell will qualify Antonelli just about. But I also think that Antonelli will be a good bet for the race. If you look at the overall geometry of this particular track, Mercedes having the superior package in terms of tire control, energy deployment, and aerodynamic efficiency, you would bet them to be the strongest car on this track. Yes, closely followed by McLaren, but I think this will be a dominant track for them. And then if you look at the temperatures again, I think they have an advantage here. So, and Red Bull, the problem I have with Red Bull is with its handling, mechanical handling. They made some odd upgrades in Austria. Some of those upgrades were at the compromise of mechanical handling. And if a car becomes unpredictable to the extent that a driver cannot control it, it becomes worrying, because at different stages of that race, Verstappen complained about one or two things. But if he has the confidence to drive like he knows how to drive, then they have a shout. I think a podium is not out of the place for Red Bull here.
Yeah. Now, we also want to mention that Ferrari does have more power in their track, so they'll be up there. But by getting more power, they move the center of their front, the central part of their car. I mean, they moved it far forward, closer to the middle of the nose, and that's causing some imbalance that Ferrari has, which could be a problem for them. But just in general, their upgrades tend to improve one thing and cause a problem in another, and they don't really have integrated chassis engine complex the way that Mercedes does, even the way that McLaren does. So I'm not going to think much, but once again, we know that Hamilton is pushing this car very well. So we're just saying the caveat. Don't be surprised if Hamilton does come Q2 or P2 or P3 in qualifying, or even gets on the podium. But based on form and on paper, we're looking at a Mercedes 1-2 with somebody from McLaren, probably Norris, I'd say, getting the podium. All right, last thoughts, Afolabi.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if we're talking about Ferrari here, it's basically maybe Hamilton and not the error-strewn Leclerc, who doesn't seem to do anything right nowadays. So basically, I think I'll give it for the race. Kimi Antonelli, George Russell, and maybe Max Verstappen. For me, qualifying, yes, Russell will out-qualify Kimi Antonelli. The geometry of this track makes sense for Mercedes more than any other team.
Yeah, and Antonelli's going to tear up those areas like the.
He will.
He's going to tear up the hairpin at 7. He's going to do so fantastic. He's going to tear up that little.
He's good at those kind of things.
At that chicane in sector 3 at 16. Those little areas are the areas where he's going to take so much time out of
17 and 18 as well.
And 3, 4, 5.
And
so
3,
I think
4, 5, yes.
Yeah, he's going to take a lot of time off of Russell in those areas. All right, take us out, Afolabi.
It's been another brilliant show. We have been previewing Silverstone, and from Mustafa and myself, we'll be back again at the weekend to review more Formula One stories.
Yeah, sorry, Holland. All right, nice one.
Condolences.
See this guy, he would disappear, but he made sure he showed up today. That guy was quiet.
Oh, yeah. It was morning. It was morning.
You know why he came today? You know why he came today? He said, please, can I give him an advance? As usual. Advance, where were you last night when we were doing a show? You were going out to drink with your friends, Abby. Don't mind that. So I told him, okay, I said, he wanted an advance because I'm supposed to give him something on the 15th. That's why he showed up today. But that guy was quiet last night.
I was the first to hop in when I sent the link.
Yeah, you know why? Because if he didn't show up, maybe, and I don't do that. I'm not wicked. I'll still send him the advance. You get my point? Yeah. But in his brain, he was like, and he was professional today. Yes. He was laughing and joking. He was probably like, I hate you guys, Nigeria. That's one good thing about Segodi. No matter how he feels, he's able to behave properly. You get my point?
Yeah, he's more mature than that kid.
He's mature. Yeah. All right, let's get out. So we'll talk later. Okay.
Okay, Mustafa, yeah.